Hello, everyone. Welcome back to today's story. In this episode, just when Diep believes her hope is fading, something extraordinary happens. James finally returns. After months of silence, fear, and waiting, Diep and little Nhi sit together on a quiet riverbank, sharing tears, memories, and the pain of missing someone they love. But at the very moment they think they have been forgotten, footsteps approach from behind. Footsteps they both recognize instantly. What follows is a heartbreaking yet heartwarming reunion. Stay until the end, because this chapter reveals not only James's long-awaited comeback, but also the moment their small family becomes whole again. And don't forget to subscribe to help us reach 10,000 subscribers. Your support means the world to us. The sun hangs low over the sprawling riverbank, casting long, shimmering waves of heat that blur the edges of the world. It is late afternoon, the kind of day where time feels slow and heavy, where every breeze carries dust and every breath tastes like summer. On a gentle patch of sand near the water, Diep kneels down, her knees sinking into warm grains as she tries to mold a tiny sandcastle with careful, patient hands. Beside her, little Nhi wears a slightly oversized pink dress, the hem already darkened by dirt. Her hair is tied into two tiny pigtails, each one swaying as she leans forward with intense concentration. Her chubby fingers dig into the sand, scooping and patting with all the seriousness of someone building a palace. But her eyes, round, dark, endlessly expressive, keep darting toward the long dirt road stretching away from the riverbank. "Aunt Diep," she finally asks, voice small and trembling in the hot wind, "why is Uncle James taking so long?" The question sounds innocent, but it thunders inside Diep's heart. She feels something twist sharply in her chest, a mixture of longing and fear she's been trying to swallow for months. She forces a smile, soft but strained, and brushes sand from her palms. "He's just busy today, sweetheart," she replies carefully. "We'll wait a bit more. He promised he would come if he could." But even as she speaks, her gaze betrays her. Her eyes lift toward that same long road, shimmering under the sun like melted gold, hoping for the silhouette of a man she has not seen in far too long. There is no movement, no dust cloud rising behind running footsteps, no familiar voice calling her name, just silence and heat. The sandcastle leans awkwardly to one side, its tiny towers beginning to droop from the shifting wind. Diep stares at it for a moment, at the fragile shape standing bravely against the world, and she sees herself, always patching, always hoping, always waiting. Nhi suddenly stops working. Her hands fall still. Her lower lip quivers. I think I'm giving up on Uncle James," she announces with a trembling voice, trying to sound brave. Diep freezes. The words crash through her like a wave. Nhi's eyes fill instantly with tears, shimmering like two tiny pools of heartbreak. "He said he would come see us. He said—" Her voice breaks, and she wipes her cheek with the back of her dusty hand. "If he doesn't come today, then I'll stop waiting." Diep's breath catches, a sharp and painful sound she can't hide. Of all the things she feared, hearing this from Nhi was the worst. The child's loyalty, her endless belief in James, has been a lifeline for Diep through many nights. Losing that belief feels like losing the last flame of hope. "Nhi," Diep whispers, her voice cracking like dry earth. Before she can say more, a tear slips down her cheek. She wipes it quickly, pretending to brush away sand. "It's nothing, sweetheart. Just dust. The wind is strong today." But Nhi sees everything. She drops her bucket, scoots closer, and climbs into Diep's lap with small, trembling hands. Without saying a word, she wraps her arms around Diep's neck and buries her face into her chest. "Don't cry alone," Nhi sobs softly. "I'll cry with you." That simple sentence shatters Diep's last bit of composure. Tears spill freely from her eyes, silently at first, then like rain finally released after months of suffocating drought. She holds Nhi tightly, rocking her gently as if they could protect each other from the ache in their hearts. "I miss him too," Diep whispers, voice trembling. "More than you know." The wind picks up, sweeping their soft sobs across the riverbank, carrying the sound into the open sky. To any passerby, they would look like a mother and daughter sharing the deepest sorrow. But to Diep, this bond is even more fragile, more painfully precious. After a long moment, Diep cups Nhi's small cheeks, brushing away the wetness. "Promise me something," she says quietly. "Promise you won't stop believing in him. He's trying, sweetheart, even if we don't know how hard." Nhi sniffles, nodding weakly. "I promise, but I'm still mad." Diep laughs through her tears, the sound shaky but warm. "That's okay. I think he deserves a little scolding when he comes back." As the afternoon drifts toward evening, the air grows cooler. Shadows stretch across the sand, long and wavering, wrapping the riverbank in a gentle melancholy. Fireflies begin glowing between the reeds, tiny sparks lifting into the growing dusk. But the dirt road remains empty. Diep glances toward it again and again, each time hoping for a miracle. Her fingers absent-mindedly stroke Nhi's hair, untangling strands curled by the heat. The sandcastle now lies half-collapsed, one tower crumbled completely. Nhi sighs when she sees it, but doesn't bother fixing it. "Just like Uncle James," she mumbles tiredly. "Always breaking things." Diep winces, though her heart softens at the honesty. "Not always," she whispers. "He didn't break us. We're still here." Nhi lays her head against Diep's shoulder again, eyes growing heavy. "Aunt Diep," she murmurs, voice fading. "He really made you cry again today." Diep kisses her forehead, brushing away the last of her tears. "It's all right, sweetheart. Crying doesn't mean giving up. Sometimes it just means we miss someone too much." The sky deepens into a rich orange, then a blood-red hue. The sun sinks behind the distant hills, swallowing the final glimmers of day. Diep holds Nhi as if holding time itself, afraid that if she lets go, something in her will break beyond repair. She presses her cheek against Nhi's hair and closes her eyes. "Come back," she prays silently. "Come back safe. Come back soon. Come back to us." The world grows quiet, so quiet that Diep can hear her own heartbeat. But then, somewhere down the dirt road, a soft crunch breaks the silence. A step, another step, slow, uneven, approaching. At first, she thinks it's the wind or a passing animal. But the air changes. Warmth gathers behind her, like a familiar embrace she hasn't felt in months. A shadow stretches toward her across the sand. She doesn't dare turn around, but she knows. Every part of her, every memory, every heartbeat, every ache, recognizes the presence standing just a few steps behind her and little Nhi. James has come back, and their world is about to shift forever. For a long, breathless moment, Diep doesn't move. She doesn't speak. She barely even breathes. The soft crunch of footsteps grows closer, slow, hesitant, as if the person approaching is afraid the slightest sound might shatter this fragile moment. Nhi is the first to stir. Still half asleep, she rubs her eyes against Diep's shoulder. Her small ears twitch at the sound. She lifts her head, blinking, trying to understand why the air suddenly feels warmer, why Diep's arms suddenly tighten around her, as if bracing for something impossible. "Aunt Diep, someone's coming," Nhi whispers. Diep swallows hard, her heart hammering so loudly she can hear it in her ears. But she doesn't turn around. She's afraid. Afraid that her mind is playing tricks. Afraid that if she turns and no one is there, the remaining hope she's been clinging to will collapse just like the sandcastle beside them. The footsteps stop. A quiet exhale drifts through the cooling air. A voice follows, low, familiar, trembling. Diep. Her entire body jolts. The wind stills. The river hushes. Even the fireflies seem frozen midair. She turns, very slowly, as if afraid the world might disappear if she moves too fast. There he stands. James. Dust clings to his boots and pants as if he's walked a long distance. His shirt is wrinkled, damp with sweat, and one sleeve is torn at the seam. His hair is a mess, sticking to his forehead, and his eyes, those tired, aching eyes, are fixed on her with a mixture of fear, relief, longing, and guilt so deep it almost looks like pain. "James." Diep breathes, her voice barely above a whisper. She rises to her feet, holding Nhi close as the little girl blinks toward the figure in the fading light. For a moment, Diep can't move any further. She studies him from head to toe, as if trying to confirm he's real. Flesh, bone, breath. Not just a memory shaped by her desperate longing. He takes one small step toward her. "I'm here," James whispers. "I'm really here." The last thread of restraint snaps. Diep covers her mouth with a trembling hand as tears burst from her eyes. Her knees go weak, but before she can collapse, James reaches her, closing the distance in 3 shaky steps, and pulls her into his arms. Her face buries into his chest, and she sobs. A raw, breaking sob, months in the making. His arms wrap around her tightly, lifting, holding, almost crushing her with the force of how desperately he has missed her. "I thought," Diep chokes out, "you weren't coming back. I thought something happened to you." James presses his forehead to her hair, voice trembling. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have come sooner." Nhi wiggles between them, confused at first by the sudden whirlwind of emotion. She pulls back slightly, studying James's face with a deep frown. "Uncle James?" she asks. James immediately crouches down, tears gathering in his eyes as he meets his daughter eye to eye. "Hi, baby," he whispers, opening his arms. But Nhi doesn't jump into them. Not yet. She crosses her arms, her tiny face puffed with indignation. "You made Aunt Diep cry again." James freezes. He glances at Diep, guilt flooding his expression, then looks back at the little girl. "I know," he murmurs softly. "I know I did, and I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt either of you." Nhi's lip trembles. "You said you'd come. You said you'd visit. But you didn't." I waited and waited and waited. James reaches out, brushing her cheek with the back of his fingers. I'm sorry I made you wait, but I promise you, I never stopped thinking about you, not even for 1 minute. Nhi hesitates. Then suddenly, like a small storm breaking, she throws herself into his arms, sobbing into his neck. James gasps as he catches her, hugging her so tightly it looks like he's afraid to ever let go again. Don't leave again, Nhi cries. Please don't leave Aunt Diep again. James presses a kiss to her hair. I won't, he whispers. I'm here now. I'm not running anymore. Diep watches them, tears streaming down her face. Something warm and painful blooms in her chest. Relief mixed with fear, hope mixed with memories of every night she cried alone. When James stands again with Nhi in his arms, his eyes meet Diep's. For the first time in months, they're close enough to feel each other's breath. Let me see you, James murmurs, brushing a strand of hair away from her face. God, I've missed you. Diep steps back slightly, wiping her tears with unsteady hands. Where were you? What happened? Why didn't you send even one message? James lowers his gaze. I had to lay low. Some people were still hunting for me. And if I contacted you, even once, they could have traced it. I couldn't risk your safety. Or Nhi's. Diep's breath catches again, this time with something sharper than sadness. You should have trusted me. You should have at least let me know you were alive. I know, he whispers, and I regret it every day. Silence fills the space between them, thick with all the words they never got to say. Nhi, still clinging to James's shirt, lifts her head. Are you staying with us tonight? James looks at Diep as if asking permission with his eyes. She doesn't answer immediately. The weight of everything, fear of being found, the danger still lurking, the hurt he left behind, sits heavy on her heart. But then she sees the way Nhi's fingers clutch him, the way James's hands shake slightly as if terrified she might step away, the way her own heart answers him before her mind can argue. Yes, Diep finally whispers. Stay. A small smile forms on James's lips, hesitant, hopeful, fragile. Then I'll stay, as long as you want me here. Nhi beams instantly. Forever! James lets out a breathless laugh. Forever sounds perfect. As the sky deepens into twilight, the three of them walk toward the small shelter by the riverbank, hand in hand. Nhi takes James's left hand. Diep takes his right. For the first time in what feels like a lifetime, their footsteps match. Three shadows merging into one on the cooling sand. The night air fills with the scent of wet earth, the whisper of crickets, and the gentle glow of lanterns flickering in nearby homes. It feels peaceful, almost unreal. James pauses, turning to look at the two most important people in his life. This time, he says softly, squeezing their hands, I'm not running away. I'm fighting to stay. For both of you. Diep's chest tightens. But this time, it's with hope, not fear. Their small family, broken and scattered for so long, has found its way back together under the quiet evening sky. And though the world outside is still dangerous, still unpredictable, still waiting to challenge them, right here, right now, they are whole again.